Well, hi guys, welcome. And who dat? I'm Joe. Thanks for tuning in to Rosenfield 10, where I cover our beloved Bless You Boys in black and gold, the New Orleans Saints. If you're a Who Dat fan, subscribe to this channel. I love the Saints as much as you do. I love talking about them. Keep me in your subscriptions when you see a video of mine. You get to hear someone talking about your favorite team, and then you tell me in the comments what you think. I respond to my comments. And today, well, tonight actually, the 2026 NFL Draft is officially over, and we are going to talk about every pick the Saints made, every move the Saints made, how these players fit on the team, and let's see what we can get excited about. I'm not one to give grades on a draft right away. Typically, I'll give the team a B or a C because you just don't know. If I give them a bad grade, it's because I had players in mind that they didn't take, and they know better than I do. This draft would have gone completely different had I been in the front office, and I'm here to tell you, every pick I would have made through the first 4 rounds would have been taking players way earlier than they actually went on the boards. So, do I know something they don't know? Or does this prove that I don't know Jack? Well, I have an opinion like everybody else. The Saints are my favorite team. Let's talk about every pick they made. I think the draft was pretty good. I think the Saints did what they felt like they had to do when the season ended last year, and you're taking into account everything about the team. You got three sides of the ball: offense, defense, special teams. The defense was doing okay. The offense, well, we were happy about the quarterback, but a lot of areas needed fixing. And in the special teams was pretty much a disaster from the beginning of the year to the end. We finally get the kicking situation figured out, hopefully, with Charlie Smith. And yeah, there was a lot of work that needed to be done. So after free agency and after this draft, I gotta say, two of the happiest people in Louisiana have got to be quarterback Tyler Shuck and special teams coordinator Phil Galliano. Poor Phil, he had a bad situation from the very beginning. Every single special teams player that was worth anything got stripped off this team one by one. He ends up in a situation with a punter that we weren't going to keep, a kicker who's only been kicking in American football for 2 years, and a bunch of new people on special teams that never really done the job before. That's what it seemed like. Well, Galliano can sleep well tonight because this draft has given him a bunch of players to make his unit better. And what we didn't improve on special teams, well, a lot of it went to the offense. Tyler Shuck now has lots of weapons to throw the ball to, and he can probably sleep a little easier tonight, too. Great moves made by the Saints. Ultimately, I think, the defense, of course, gets a bad shake, but hey, there were some adjustments made on the defense too. So let's talk about all of it, starting with the first round pick, eighth overall. The Saints select wide receiver Jordyn Tyson out of Arizona State. Yep, if it weren't for the injuries, he would have been the number one wide receiver. As it is, he's the second wide receiver taken off the board. And he's a pretty good player. He stays healthy. If Jordyn Tyson can give us 15 or more games a year, then the Saints have made the steal of the draft, probably. Jordyn Tyson, 6 foot 2 and 1/8 inches tall, 203 pounds. And yeah, he didn't test because of the hamstring, but he did a little workout 6 days before the draft. Everybody saw that he was healed. The only number we got on the workout was 26 bench reps from a wide receiver, which is pretty close to the record, I think. So Jordyn Tyson is pretty quick. He's probably faster than a 4.5 speed, I think. He's quick in and out of his breaks. He can stop suddenly. He does everything well as a wide receiver, including contested catches. He's had a lot of drops in his career, but only one this past season. I believe he's got 13 total in his college season, so it's nice to see him improve and only drop one ball this past year. The only thing he doesn't do well as a wide receiver, from what I can see, is yards after catch. A lot of that has to do with probably the injuries he's suffered through his career. Get down when you have to get down, live to play another day. I don't know if that's the situation with Tyson or not. I'd rather him be smart than foolish. But I don't question his toughness or his bravery because, yeah, he's overcome quite a bit. Jordyn Tyson, our first round draft pick. And I have a video on my channel breaking him down a little further. With the second round pick, pick 42 overall in the 2026 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select a player that I mock to the Saints constantly, and that's defensive tackle Christen Miller out of Georgia. 6 foot 3 3/4 inches tall, 321 pounds, 33-inch arms, 10-inch hands. Everybody that was covering the draft kept referring to Christen Miller as a nose tackle, and I'm here to tell you, it's like calling Vernon Broughton a nose tackle. No, both of these players can play all up and down the defensive line, and Christen Miller is a solid get for this team. Certainly one of the best players left on the board. There were positional value there for players that may have felt like the player was worth the take over a defensive tackle in Christen Miller. But as far as the talent goes, I think in the second round it doesn't compare. Christen Miller was too good of a player to pass up at that point. And he does fill a position of need. We know Davin Gawchaw's in his last year under contract this year. We know Nathan Shepard is under his last year this year. So Vernon Broughton turns out to be a great player. Great. Brian Rasee, it shows improvement, and he's under contract for 2 more years. If he can show improvement in this system, great. And now you've got Christen Miller, a guy that's going to come in and at least be in the rotation. And I think Miller, as a run blocker, is probably better than everybody on the team right out of the gate. Shepard showed some improvement as a pass rusher this year. Shepard's been pretty solid versus the run. Brian Rasee is the guy that needs to show a heck of a lot more improvement against the run. Christen Miller and Vernon Broughton, to me, seem like your defensive line on early downs for the future. Brian Rasee can come in and rush the passer. But let's leave it up to Vernon Broughton and Christen Miller. Man, I hope Brian Rasee shows something because if he does, right now, the way I'm looking at it, we got to see what Broughton's got, but Rasee's got to show some improvement. I am excited about Christen Miller stopping the run, playing either the nose or a defensive end right next to the defensive tackle, and in the dirt, stuffing the run. I think Christen Miller has enough athleticism to show some promise as a pass rusher too. So yeah, I'm excited about Christen Miller. When we made the pick, there were a lot of players there I really wanted. Christen Miller was definitely in my top 10 favorite players to get at that point. And like I say, I mocked him to the Saints constantly. He's a great fit. So I'm excited about that one. The one that was a little more puzzling was in the third round with pick 73 when the New Orleans Saints selected tight end Oscar Delp out of Georgia. Love Oscar Delp. I had him as a day 3 guy. He's got great talent. He wasn't at the top of my tight end list, but he was certainly a tight end that I was targeting. I just I didn't have him on my final list there for round three. He was ranked higher than other guys I put on my list, but I just immediately dropped Delp. Added a couple of tight ends behind him, and I just didn't add Delp back to the list at the end. I figured he would lead off day three. He would be the first tight end I'm looking to get in round four, perhaps. But there was a run on tight ends in the third round, and Delp has a lot of ability. The first guy I think of when I think of tight end Oscar Delp is actually Foster Moreau. Feel like they're pretty similar. They can be good as a run blocker and as a receiver. Delp's probably a much better athlete overall, so I hope he turns out to be a better overall player than Morrow did. Morrow was a great leader, but to have Delp on the team, although we have Noah Fant and Juwan Johnson, to have Delp on the team means we have a better run blocker, a guy who's going to perform better as a blocker in certain situations. And Delp is built just well enough where you can put him everywhere. I would like for him to add more weight. Delp is 6 foot 4 and 7/8 inches tall, so he's right at 6 foot 5. He's 245 pounds. All right, so you get five or 10 more pounds on this guy, and yeah, he'll be, to me, in my opinion, perfect. He's a little light right now to be putting on the line of scrimmage all the time, but he's probably our best run blocker right now. When I watched Georgia play football this past year, I singled out number four and I watched Delp. The whole time I was watching the game, I never followed the quarterback. I never followed the ball. I was watching Delp because everything he did impressed me when he was on the field. Whatever he was asked to do, he was doing it. If he had to cross if he had to cross the formation before the snap, if he had to reset, if he had to block anybody, if he had to get out in space and block on the second level, whatever they asked him to do, he was doing it and he was doing it perfectly. His technique was great. Now, I think he's a little physically limited, being 245 and not 255. So you can be technically sound all you want and still get whipped. I watched Foster Moreau get whipped constantly last year. Every year he was with the team, even though we said he was the best run blocker. Foster physically just couldn't handle everybody all the time, no matter how smart and technically sound he was. But I don't worry about Delp when it comes to run blocking. Like I said, I wouldn't worry about Foster Moreau that much either. Delp might get beat every now and then, but he's a good piece to have. Still makes me scratch my head. I think the need for a backup center outweighs the need for a third tight end. I liked a lot of centers in the third and fourth round of this draft, and we didn't get a single one of them. So I am worried about that. But look, in 2 years, when Juwan Johnson and Noah Fant aren't employed here anymore, Oscar Delp will have 2 years of development under his belt and growth, the ability to learn under Johnson and Fant, and then if Delp's ready to be the man, we'll have this talented player under a rookie contract, and we'll see how it goes. All right, we had two fourth round picks. Amazingly, the Saints didn't trade up at all. Shocking. With our first fourth round pick 132 in the 2026 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Jeremiah Wright, offensive guard out of Auburn. We liked Wright a lot from the very beginning. He was a standout at the Senior Bowl. He was a 30 visit, and yeah, he was one of those guys that fluctuated in these mocks. You could get him. Sometimes you had to get him in the fourth round. A lot of times he would last till the sixth round. Always had a circle around Jeremiah Wright, mocked him to the Saints constantly. And it's because he's such a dominant run blocker which is something I thought our team wanted to improve a lot on, running the ball. Cesar Ruiz grades out pretty horribly as a run blocker. So I figured Jeremiah Wright would be a late round guy that we could get, plays right guard, that could come in and literally have a chance to beat out Cesar Ruiz. If you're not going to take a guy in the first or second round, Jeremiah Wright felt like a Senior Bowl participant, stud dude that could get it done. A big, strong, mauler, kind of offensive lineman. I just envisioned Kellen Moore would really like. And he likes him. We got him in the fourth round. 6'5" and 1/8 inches tall, 331 pounds. He has 33 and 1/8 inch arms, 33 plus, 10-inch hands. Now he's not a very good pass blocker, and that's the issue I have with Jeremiah Wright. There's a chance, he's not beating Cesar Ruiz out right away. Unless our coaches can get to Wright and get him to fix his issues. The biggest issue I see with him is hand placement when he's pass protecting. And I think that's something that can get fixed if our coaching staff dedicates him to it. And he's a massive dude. He's strong, and I think he's, dominating run blockers half the battle. So figure out your hand placement, get better at pass protection. We can't get rid of Cesar Ruiz fast enough. So Jeremiah Wright, welcome to the Saints. There's a place on this team for you. And we had a second, fourth round pick 136 overall in the 2026 NFL Draft. The New Orleans Saints signed wide receiver Bryce Lance out of North Dakota State. Unbelievable. We had a feeling we'd double dip at wide receiver. And then on top of that, when you get Jordyn Tyson, a guy who's injury prone, as your first wide receiver, then yeah, you're certainly going to double dip. And I've been saying it for months and months. The wide receiving pool in this draft was so deep. You were going to come across a wide receiver being the best player at almost every round. And yeah, the chance was you were going to double dip. The Saints end up triple dipping, but let's talk about the double dip first. With Trey Lance's younger brother, Bryce Lance, 6'3" and 3/8 inches tall, 204 pounds. So the guy is 6'3" plus, 200 plus pounds, wide receiver. Perfect for the X. Give him a shot. That kind of thing. Um, Jordyn Tyson is 6'2" plus, so we've got two big wide receivers now. People wanted size, and Lance has got plenty of it. 32 and 1/8 inch arms, 9 and 1/4 inch hands. Bryce Lance ran a 4.34 40-yard dash. He had a vertical leap of 41.5. He had a broad jump of 11 feet 1 inches. It's all just elite stuff. And the only question anyone has about Lance is the competition at North Dakota State, who he had to play against. And he was a productive player. He's got athletic bloodlines. He's showed at the Senior Bowl that he could compete, and he showed at the Combine that he can score as good as anyone ever really has. So, what a great option in the fourth round. Bryce Lance would be a guy I would be excited about had we not even taken a wide receiver yet. Bryce Lance was the kind of guy that you get him in the third round, it's a little risky. You get him in the fourth round, it's you had to do it. You have to. You can't pass him up at that point. He's one of those players. I wasn't taking him at 73, but man, late in the fourth round, you have to take him. And if you hadn't addressed wide receiver earlier in the draft, then yeah, he would have been worth trading up for. Lance could very well be the value of the draft for this team, and we'll see how he progresses in this offense. But yeah, maybe the league is looking back at this. Maybe when they're doing redrafts 5 years from now, Bryce Lance isn't a bottom of the fourth round pick. Super talented guy. All right. The first fifth round pick we had was pick 150. We decided to trade that pick to the Las Vegas Raiders. In exchange, we got their seventh round pick, pick 119, and we also got a player. The player is edge rusher, defensive end, Wilson. Tyree Wilson. And this is a guy who I didn't know a lot about. He was drafted in 2023 with the seventh overall pick by the Raiders. And yeah, a guy like that should be on everyone's radar. He's been in the league 3 years. He's got a total of 12 sacks, and seems like he just was not very consistent. Apparently, he played pretty well when they would put him on the middle of the defensive line and let him occupy that too. But, I guess primarily at defensive end. 6 foot 5 inches. His current weight's 263 pounds. I saw another metric had him at 270. So he is another bigger dude. And yeah, I don't know if we're telling that guy to put his hand in the dirt. I think Brandon Staley's vision of Wilson is he's not being productive enough with the Raiders because they're putting his hand in the dirt. He needs to stand up and be an edge rusher and occupy that outside linebacker spot more. Now, the versatility to put his hand in the dirt, we go to a four-man front, put Wilson as a pass rusher with his hand in the dirt. Sounds great. 263. He could probably do it. I don't remember Tyree Wilson back in that draft because he basically was rated as a fourth round guy, and the Raiders just super high reached for him. That's what I'm thinking. So Staley has a vision for this guy. Obviously, he's talented if he got drafted in the first round. We're going to give a fifth round pick to get this guy, still under a rookie contract. He's got 1 year left. So this is a 1 year prove it deal. And we've taken former top 10 drafted players before on this team, and they've had success. Chase Young. So maybe Tyree Wilson, change of scenery, change of primary responsibilities. Perhaps he turns into the edge rusher we were all wanting. We didn't address edge rusher in the draft early, and a lot of people were nervous. We didn't re-sign Cam Jordan, so big question there. I think this was a pretty awesome move for the Saints. A fifth round pick. You get an edge rusher in here who's already got a couple of years in the league under his belt. You identify how this player could get better. I'm assuming they're identifying why he hasn't performed so far. I think he's just out of position. I think he's going to stand up and rush the passer, and yeah, we'll see what happens. The great thing about it is a fifth round pick for this player is pretty solid, but then you end up getting a draft pick anyway. You don't lose the number of players you draft this year because you end up picking up a really high seventh rounder. So that worked out good for the Saints. I'm happy with the move. And with the second fifth round pick, pick 172 overall in the fifth round of the 2026 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select safety Lorenzo Styles Jr. out of Ohio State. His brother Sonny got drafted in the first 10 picks, and now he gets drafted in the fifth round. Lorenzo Styles, 6 foot and 1/2 inches tall, 194 pounds, 31 and 5/8 inch hand or arms, 9.5 inch hands. Lorenzo Style is remembered from this combine for having that blazing 4.27 speed. And of course, his brother had the combine of the ages. And it was one of the moments where Sonny Styles was lighting up the combine like few have ever done, and then here's his brother running one of the fastest times. that the combine will ever see. So people didn't really think of Lorenzo Styles. At Ohio State, they had so many great playmakers, and all those Styles got a lot of playing time this past year. His stats don't jump off the sheet. It's not because he's an untalented guy. It's because the Styles brothers are so talented that they've played multiple positions in college. It's almost like, could you pick a position and just work at it for a while? Sonny was a safety, and then the last couple of years, fine-tuning linebacker. He's a first-round pick. Well, the guy we get is brother, Lorenzo. This guy was a wide receiver. And then in just the last 2 years, he's learned how to play safety. And I think he got a good leg up on the training by being at Ohio State to start with. And the immense athleticism of the player tells me, and the dedication, it seems like he's a complete guy, that he can get a lot better as a safety. That's not the reason why I'm excited about the pick. The ceiling is pretty high for Styles as a safety, so I should be excited for that. But I think his ability to contribute on special teams is going to make him special. When we drafted him, a lot of people in the chat I was at were talking about how fast he was and immediately thought he'd be a returner. And then I looked into his college career, and I believe he's only got a handful of returns under his belt. It's not like he was a returner. The few times he did it, he looked exceptional. I think he has a 100-yard punt return or something like that. But yeah, that's not what he's done a lot of. If he's going to be a returner for the Saints, he's going to have to work on it. My immediate thought was safety. He can tackle. He's got that speed. We need a gunner, and we need a special teams coverage guy quick. And I read a lot of overviews about Lorenzo Styles, and I forgot which site it was that mentioned that he had actually done some of this covered kicks. So don't quote me on it. I don't know. I read it. Can't say where I read it. Don't quote me on it because the site could have been wrong. But in my mind, it seems like the perfect gig. And man, Phil Galliano's got to feel the same way. If Lorenzo Styles can be a kick returner and a punt returner, great. If he can be a kick coverage and punt coverage guy and be a gunner for you, man, that's something that this team was missing last year. We had a couple of special teams standouts when it was all said and done. Isaiah Stallbird, Danny Stutzman, they played pretty well. Yadam had a pretty good special teams career last year for us, but yeah, we got rid of JT Gray and feel like you put Lorenzo Styles in that dude's place, and this guy might be making he might be making the Pro Bowl as a special teamer, not even returning kicks. So that's why I'm excited. Special teams is going to be it's going to be better with this guy on the team, whether he's a returner or a coverer or whatever. And yeah, ceiling is the sky when it comes to his ability as a safety. All right, with the sixth round pick 190 in the 2026 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints make the most surprising pick they made all day, in my opinion, by drafting wide receiver Barion Brown out of LSU. And as soon as the selection's made, you have to think kick returner, punt returner. He's going to be a returner. Well, we just got Styles. Isn't that something he might be able to do too? I was telling everyone in the chat, I think Styles is going to be a gunner. And when we got Brown, it wasn't as big of a shock to me. It shouldn't have been because I don't think Barry and Brown's going to be a wide receiver on this team. I don't think he's going to be so good out of the gate that he earns a job as a receiver. I think he's going to earn a job as a returner. So yeah, Styles, please get good at being a gunner. Let Brown be the returner, and this will just be the special teams draft of the ages. Barry and Brown, 5'11", 177 pounds, 31 and 1 inch arms, 31.5 inch arms, 9 inch hands, 4.4 speed. He looks a lot faster on the field. He's got that 1.62 10-yard split. He's pretty quick, pretty sudden, and he's got a lot of yards after catch ability. So being a wide receiver, it could work. I'm not saying it won't. I'm just saying. He averaged 29. He averaged 29.4 yards per kick return. So almost 30 yards a kick return. He did it throughout his career, both schools he was at. He's got 6 total kick return touchdowns. Well, the issue is Barion Brown only has a couple of punt returns, so maybe Styles does the punt returning and Brown. Like I said, neither one of them are punt returners right now. Styles has to learn how to be a returner total. Barion Brown should be a stud kick returner for us. And yeah, if he develops as a wide receiver, he does have that yak ability that a lot of our receivers lack. With the last pick in the draft, the seventh round, pick 219 overall, the New Orleans Saints select cornerback T.J. Hall out of Iowa. This is not a guy I had on my radar. Never once mocked him to the Saints. I've mocked everyone else on this list to the Saints, but never T.J. Hall. He's got good size, 6 foot and 3/4 inches tall, 189 pounds, 30-inch arms, 9.5 inch hands. His 40 time was 4.59. He looks a lot bigger than 6 foot three and 3/4. 6'1". He just looks bigger than that. And the 40 time isn't great. He had a 36-inch vert. Hall looks to be pretty good at zone, and he's a really good tackler. And that is something that I've mentioned a lot. It seems this organization will prioritize. They do not want guys that miss tackles. So you've got that aspect of TJ Hall's game. And then the fact that he plays so big and he's a good size. I think he can be a big nickel on this team. Whether he's going to try to be the star for us or not, I don't know. But certainly out of the gate, he seems to be another piece on special teams. Somebody that can, if he's that good at tackling, can make a name for himself and can make a spot on this roster. As a cornerback with the skills that he has, it's we're talking about a seventh round pick here, but he's good at zone and he can cover all types. You just don't want him getting beat deep. He's not going to cover small, fast receivers, but all types is in running backs, perhaps tight ends, perhaps big slots. So there's a chance TJ Hall becomes a star in this defense. Lorenzo Styles could also be a star on this defense. That's the main position we did not address, star and center. I think that's two positions we desperately needed and we didn't address. So perhaps maybe Hall is that guy that the Saints really like. Maybe Sanker's already, in their head going to do it. They say training camp's going to come and we're going to put these players in different positions and we'll figure it all out then. So the biggest glaring need right now, perhaps we haven't addressed star slash nickel with a bona fide starter. And yeah, we still haven't addressed backup center. That's what I'm going to be looking for the rest of free agency. Subscribe to Rosenfield 10. I'm going to be doing a video in the next day or two covering every single undrafted rookie free agent we sign. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Who dat?